You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So today I want to talk to you about how to plan your school counseling guidance lessons or SEL lessons. And I want to know what you call them. Please send me a message and tell me if you're calling them guidance lessons still, or if you call them SEL lessons or counselor lessons, or I've asked this before, but I'm just curious because I do still call them guidance lessons, even though I proudly say that I'm a school counselor and not a guidance counselor. I don't know. I just can't change it for some reason in my head. And this is something I should have mentioned on the previous Advocating for Your Role episode, but that is so important to advocate for your title. And I was at my last school. When I got hired on, I got sent the paperwork, the contract to sign. And it said, your title, your hours, all that good stuff, your pay. And it said title, guidance counselor. And I asked that if they could change it to the school counselor instead of the guidance counselor. And I was embarrassed to ask, and it seemed silly. But it wasn't silly, and I'm really proud that I did. They did change it, and I kind of gave an explanation of how that's an outdated term and how what we do now encompasses so much more, how we're serving kids in academic, social, emotional, all the areas and career fields, those three domains. So anyways, I'm really glad that I asked them to change it, and then they even changed the placard on my door, and it was just a proud moment there. And I have that t-shirt. I think it was from my ASCA conference. Oh, I think it was actually from my CASC, the California conference. It says guidance counselor, and the guidance is crossed out with a big X, and it says school counselor. And yeah, I proudly wear that because we're school counselors, not guidance counselors. Yet I'm still calling them guidance lessons. So anyways, I want to know what you're calling them. Please let me know so I can change my verbiage to match, all the other counselors. So let's talk about, for the sake of this episode, guidance lessons. You've got a big caseload. You're already getting referrals from small groups. And then your principal's like, yo, are you going to do any lessons this year? The old counselor used to do a lot of lessons. You're probably feeling overwhelmed, right? Again, you have limited time. You have a lot of kids to see. These are crucial though, okay? So remember, the key components of a school counseling program are your guidance lessons, your small groups, and your individual sessions. These are your main three things. Guidance lessons are supposed to be going to all students. This is your tier 1 intervention, right? Every single student at your school is supposed to be receiving a guidance lesson. Sounds overwhelming, totally doable. So let's talk about it. How do you plan your guidance lessons? What is supposed to be inside of a guidance lesson? Your school may have a system in place, so that's something you want to find out first. There might already be a curriculum. I know a lot of schools have purchased Second Step, or there's some other curriculums. Second Step was the one that I had worked with in the past. So if your school has one, you can follow it step by step. Read the lesson plans and implement it exactly as it says. These are all well researched, and why not? It's proven year after year people have used them. I had Second Step, and I honestly didn't love it. I pretty much refuse to use the puppets, y'all. I just can't. I mean, I love my elementary kiddos, and I like being silly from time to time, but I just couldn't do the puppets. So anyways, I would kind of do supplemental things along with Second Step. So I would use the lesson that I was provided and then kind of take the core themes and then mix in some things of my own. So you can do that. You can use it straight up. You can mix in your own. Or unfortunately, if you don't have anything to start with, make your own, right? Or you can always purchase some curriculum on TPT or something. So, but you can decide what works best with you. So my school was pretty tech savvy. This is when I'm referring to the elementary school that I worked at. And I personally don't like a lot of print and prep. I'm not trying to print and cut out 30 things before each guidance lesson. I just don't have time for that. So, and I doubt you do either. So I would do digital PowerPoint guidance lessons or Google Slides guidance lessons. And they would still have interactive games and video. So it's not like I'm just standing up there on some monologue clicking slides. Definitely not that. I would still have games that we would do, and they would still have videos that we could discuss, discussion questions. Sometimes I would have an accompanying worksheet, but not often. So it would literally be grab my computer, walk to the room, ready to go. No print and prep. Although I do know some counselors are way more gifted in that area than I am, and they like to do crafts or interactive notebooks, anything like that. Although I will say my digital ones, it was great when we switched to virtual because then, I didn't really have to change anything. They were easily adaptable for that. Although one of my favorite lessons to do that is a lot of print and prep, but it's very engaging and fun, are my, I have more than one actually, but I usually do like Mission Meet the Counselor. It's an escape room style guidance lesson. So I have a few escape room style lessons that are really fun, and those do require a lot of prep, but they're so much fun. So anyways, you'll figure out what you like to do. And if you are going to create your own, here is a good framework that you can follow. First, instruction. So let's say that you're giving a guidance lesson on friendship skills. So first you want to talk about what is friendship. Give an example. Have them do a think, pair, share with a partner where they're describing a time that they were a good friend. Then you want to watch a video. So I'll include, go to YouTube, find some videos. Now, that is a rabbit hole that you can get sucked down, and that will take up a lot of time. So knowing that from experience, I actually have a blog post that's a YouTube video resource guide, and I link by category. So I have like friendship, conflict resolution, bullying prevention, anger management, whatever, all in there, links to different YouTube videos that I've used. I highly recommend you going to check that out because, like I said, you can get sucked down that rabbit hole and wasting time quickly. But grab a video from that list, or if you find your own, love to show a video. They're always engaging. And then discuss the video. So make sure that you're really discussing the video after. Do breakout groups. You can even do discussion cards. And then I like to do an activity. So I like to do role play. A lot of times we'll split up and do role play if we're doing like a social skills lesson or even bullying prevention, something like that. A lot of times we'll do charades. So I like to act out if we're learning coping skills or stress busters, or I'm trying to think, like anger management, calm down strategies. Role play is also good for relational aggression, I statements, things like that. And then I like to do some fun games, like think about the theme you're doing. So if you're doing cooperation, you can have the kids where they have to get in line order according to birthday without talking, or something like that, right? So think of what you're teaching and then try to think of a fun experiential activity that they can do. So, get your mind out of like worksheets. I want you to think of like up and moving active activity. And then your PowerPoint slide would just say like, okay, find a partner or whatever. And then you explain the activity. So that way, yes, you're using a digital like PowerPoint lesson, but they're physically doing something. They're not just sitting there looking at slides. Okay, so instruction, video, discussion, activity. That's a good framework to follow. You're probably only going to have 20 to 30 minutes. Maybe you have more. That would be great. And I know, just from talking with some of you and surveying you, I know that there's probably a mix of people who are in the specials rotation with a structured assigned time and people who schedule their own. So depending on that, it may depend on how much time you have. But I've only ever had like 20 or 30 minutes. So in that 20 or 30 minutes, you're trying to teach a skill and check for understanding. So to make your time go further, you can even like reinforce it outside of the classroom. So if I'm teaching for 1 month, I usually teach the same topic to everybody, K through 5 or whatever. But it's modified. So the kindergartners are receiving a different lesson than the 5th graders, but the topic is still the same. The only time I would change it, so for example, self-regulation, I would teach to everyone in a different way, very different way, but they're all learning self-regulation. The only time I would change it is if it's something like bullying prevention is a little difficult to teach to kindergartners, and we're not even trying, let's keep them innocent, right? Like I don't want them to know what a bully is. So I would just teach it kindness, or more of the opposite, like positive spin of the thing you're teaching, if that makes sense. So that's a way that you could modify that one. But assuming they all have the same topic, to make your time go further and reinforce it throughout the month, create a bulletin board, hang it up by your office or something with that month's character trait, or you can mention it in morning announcements so the students are reminded of it. So even though you're only going in their class for a little bit once a month, they're still hearing that theme, throughout. You could also even give teachers some resources that they could incorporate when they get the time. So that's a passive approach to instruction, but it's still effective. Now, a bonus idea you could do is that my upper elementary school had some student ambassadors, And then they taught the lessons to 3rd and 4th grade classes. And I actually did this again at the school in Costa Rica. I had high school, like seniors taught juniors, juniors taught sophomores, sophomores taught freshmen. And that was a really cool way. They like researched it on their own. And they came with me and we kind of planned it together, and I would give them ideas for activities. And that was cool because it's saving me time, right? I'm not having to do all the lesson planning. And half the time they would come up with things that I would have never came up with because they're just more in tune with what their fellow students like. So the lessons were super cool, super engaging. They found some really great videos and stuff that I would have never found. And then the incentive for them to get volunteers was that they did it in exchange for community service hours. So I decided to do that, and it took some stuff off my plate, and then I would go in and watch the lesson. They had to meet with me 3 times before they did it, showing me their outline, what they had planned, and I would help them in any way. And then I would go in and watch them present, and very impressed with the work that they did. So that's something cool you could try. Elementary is probably too young to try that. Middle and high school, 100% try that. Although elementary, I did do it with the student ambassadors. So, but they had to have a lot of practice, a script, a lot of rehearsing. But they were still able to do it. So that's a cool idea. Okay. So how often do you teach guidance lessons? So we've covered what is in your guidance lesson. So now I want you to think about how often you're going to teach them. So again, you may already be pre-assigned your time slot. If not, I usually do 1 a month to every class and every month of the year, except sometimes not the last month of school because things are crazy. And then in addition to that, I also do as needed lessons. So I would tell teachers, like, if you have an issue come up specific to your class that's not, our character trait, let me know and I can come in and do a lesson on it. I get asked to do these all the time. One time some 4th graders were part of this app. I don't even remember the app. It was almost like a, what was that one called? Chat circle, or I don't remember. But it was definitely not where they should be. They were just like randomly chatting with people they didn't know and seeing videos and things. A lot of inappropriate stuff was going down. So the teachers brought it to my attention. I went in and did a cyber safety digital citizenship lesson specifically just for that class. Not for everyone, just for that class. I've also done it with the little ones on like tattling versus reporting when they've had a lot of tattling in their class. Like good touch, bad touch, personal space. Those are some other ones that come to mind. Sportsmanship was one I got asked to do with some kids who were having a lot of problems playing soccer at recess. So you come in, you do it with the whole class. So those were just as needed lessons. It's kind of a lot of work because you have to create a lesson just for one class. But then remember, your first year, your second year, you're creating these for the first time. But then you probably have a stash of them, right? And then you can refer to them again and use them at a later time. Or you can always buy something on TPT, Google something quickly. I mean, you can, using the internet as your resource, you can come up with a lesson with a little video activity and game fairly quickly. And a lot of times the discussion is the most valuable part of the lesson, right? And that's really simple. You can just use like discussion dice, discussion cards, something simple to get them talking. So that's how often you should be teaching guidance lessons. Now, scheduling guidance lessons is a whole different bear, and I want to talk about that in a later episode. It would be too much to talk about right now, and I want to talk about scheduling in general. Guidance lessons is part of a bigger schedule and a bigger picture, but if you are scheduling your own, I know that has its challenges as well, and we will talk about that in the future. But just know, I think you should be going in at least once a month. I think once a month is great to aim for. And then be flexible. So one time I had a principal ask me to create lessons around a book, Inch and Miles. It's a book. John Wooden is a big leadership basketball coach guy. And he asked me to create lessons around the book. So that was interesting and unique and actually ended up being really cool. And then my first year I tried to teach. So that one, the book had like 15 different levels of a pyramid. And I tried to teach all 15 lessons to every class. That was crazy. So then the second year, we just picked, we thought some character concepts would resonate more with different grades. So this was an example of when I didn't do the same lesson for everyone. I thought, oh, well, these go more with upper elementary, these go more with lower elementary, etc. Sometimes while I was doing that, a few kindergarten teachers told me, we like what you're doing with the book, but we missed second step. And the principal asked me to do the book, but they're still asking for second step. So then I went through the second step materials and found lessons that matched the books, character traits, and the result was awesome. It took some time and some tweaking to figure out, but the end result was really great. So just be flexible. Keep that in mind. And then another bonus idea you can do. So the first bonus idea I mentioned was using student ambassadors or having students teach other students. But the second bonus idea for guidance lessons is you can ask teachers to send you names of students who they chose who best represented the character trait. So for example, let's say you're teaching responsibility in October. At the end of October, ask the teachers if they could nominate 3 students who just were really going the extra mile and showing respect that month. They give you those names, and then I would do like a little assembly. I would pass out awards. Every student got an award, and then I would draw names, and then a few students would win like a bonus prize. And it was good, like a Lego or something. Fortunately, I had a really good character education budget at that school. But even if you can't do like a little prize, you could still, I would just get them together. I printed them on colored paper, but I just printed black and white, little awards, signed them, and read them out like an awards assembly. They loved it. Oh my gosh, the kids loved it. They felt super special. Get a big picture of them together all at the end. And it was really fun. I think we called them on the announcements too. So they left their class for like 5 minutes to come to get their picture taken and get their awards. And so they would hear their names and get really excited and run up there. So that's just another way to keep it special. And then they go home. Here we go, back to advocating for your role. I told y'all I mix it in all the time. They go home and their mom and dad are going through their backpack and they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, yeah, Miss Rachel, our counselor, gave out awards for kids who were being respectful this month. And they're like, oh, who's Miss Rachel? And that conversation gets started. So, also, side note, I am curious, do your students call you by your first name, like Miss Rachel, or last name, Miss Davis? I guess I'm actually a Mrs. now. I've done both. Just curious what you do. Okay, so those are some tips for implementing guidance lessons. Connect with me on Instagram. Let me know what you're doing with your guidance lessons and if you're calling them guidance lessons. I would love to know. Okay, talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.